Cool, cool.
Very, very impressive Star Wars stuff you got behind you, man.
Oh yeah, it's
Oh, you even got the. Oh, there's my favorite, the Walker. Is that the original AT-AT Walker?
no, that was from the '90s. I've got
Okay,
the
the
original
reissued one.
ATST.
Yeah,
Uh,
I have
the
a
AT
Walker tattoo, so that's my favorite to collect. Well, cool, man. How's it going? I mean, I haven't seen you since Back to the Beach Festival. Rest in peace. I mean, that was such a great festival. And then your ska doc just got released. Pick it up right then, you know.
Yeah,
How's
yeah,
it? How did the documentary go after that? Because that was just got released after that.
yeah. That was the world premiere, and it didn't come out digitally until like October or something.
Yeah.
So we did a bunch of film festivals and some screenings. We did actually a lot, like 75 screenings all over the place. A lot of them had bands playing and stuff. It was really fun.
Yeah, and you also did a vinyl soundtrack, right? Released for it.
Yeah, we just shipped those last week. It took about a year to get the music clearances and everything done.
Yeah, I think I
So,
remember that mostly the Kickstarter campaign you said went to go to lawyers to get the music rights to everything.
yes. Yeah.
So was it similar kind of good problem to have for the last Blockbuster with your new documentary you just released? I'm sure you have do you have like movie spots in there or anything, or does anybody
Yeah,
take it?
there's a lot of legal stuff on that one too, but we were lucky in that there's this thing called the Indie Film Clinic, which is a
Okay.
legal service out of New York where they basically you pitch your movie to them, and if they select you, which is like 1 out of 100 or something, then the whole class at the law school works on your movie for free, and the teacher is like a licensed lawyer who signs off on everything. But basically all of our legal work was done, you know, by these law students who have been awesome, and
That is amazing. That is so
didn't end
cool.
up costing us nearly as much.
Very cool. Well, walk us through the process of putting this whole documentary together. I mean, it's pretty crazy. The very last Blockbuster is in Bend, Oregon, which is, I guess, you
Yeah.
grew up in the Oregon area, right?
Yeah. I grew up splitting my time between Oregon and San Francisco.
Mhm.
So I've been kind of in and out of this area my whole life, and moved back to this town, Bend, Oregon, which is a very small town in Central Oregon, from Washington, D.C., a little over 5 years ago. And I drive around town. It's not that big of a town. I got to get from my house to Target or wherever. And I kept passing this sign that said Blockbuster Video. Um, and I had seen those before. They're kind of all over the place because it costs too much to take the sign down.
Yeah,
Even though,
exactly. That's the first thing I would have thought of too.
yeah. So I honestly, I drove by it several times thinking, well, it's just a sign. There's no way. This was like 2017 when I really started to notice it.
Hmm.
And actually, when I first moved to Bend in 2015, there were two Blockbusters, and one of them was near my house, was closing. And so I did that thing you do where you go in and everything is clearance price. So like all the PlayStation games are $1.99 and all the
Oh yeah,
movies
I
cheap.
did
So I
all that,
stopped.
and then I bought all that stuff digitally later.
Right. I still love physical media. I think you can
Yeah,
see some
yeah.
VHSs over there and whatnot. Uh, so that was my first foray, but that one was closing literally the month I moved here.
Hmm.
And so I thought that was it. And then this other sign I kept passing, I really believed it was just a sign until one day, for whatever reason, I pulled over and went in, and it was like going through a time warp. It was like stepping back into 2004 or 1996 or something. It
Yeah.
smelled the same, it looked the same, and it had all the new releases. So it was 2017 at that time, so there was whatever new Marvel movie, they had a whole wall of them, just like it was as if nothing had happened. Like Blockbuster was still a thing, and why wouldn't there be one that has all the new releases? And the biggest surprise was that there were people in there renting movies, like they were customers.
Yeah.
So I was still working on my first movie at that time, or it had just come out, which was another documentary. And the wheels started turning in my head of like, who are these people that are running this store? Who are these customers? What is going on here? You know, this is like the beginning of the peak of Netflix, Stranger Things, Hulu, Amazon. Who is still going in and renting a DVD of, you know, Wayne's World 2 in 2017? Uh, so I found out who owned the store. I think I sent an email or made a phone call or something, and got permission to just start kind of talking to the people, bring a camera in, not a big commitment, not a huge deal, and started shooting in March of 2017, which is like 6 months before I started on the ska documentary even.
Yeah. Because I remember
And
seeing a press release for this while you were still promoting the Skydoc. So I was like, wow.
yeah, they were definitely going at the same time. And this one was a lot more drawn out, because we were following a story that was happening in real time. When we started, there were 12 stores left. It
Oh, wow.
wasn't the last Blockbuster. And so we would film a bit. I would go off to make a ska music documentary. And then I'd get a phone call from the manager of the store, and she'd say, they just closed the other store in Oregon. So now we're the last one except for Alaska. So we're the last one in the continental United States. I'm like, okay, great. Let's film, you know, an update. So we have that. And then a couple months later, it's like, well, the Alaska stores are closing. We're going to be the last one in America. And that was a huge deal. It was all over the news and everything.
Yeah.
So we were just kind of in the right place at the right time. I never could have guessed that this store in this little town would end up being the last one. I just thought it was fascinating that there was a Blockbuster at all.
So in the trailer, she said it's a family-owned business. So how does that work out? Does she just like pay like a licensing fee to Blockbuster, or what happens when it is the last Blockbuster? Does she still have to like pay?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because we think of Blockbuster as this big corporate, you know, behemoth that was everywhere. It was like Starbucks or Walmart or something. There were so many Blockbusters, but there were two kinds of Blockbusters. There were corporate stores and there were franchises.
Gotcha.
And when the corporate stores went out of business in 2014, 2009, there's a lot of dates. It's all in the movie. I don't have to remember it. It's in the movie.
Go watch it.
But when they all went out of business, I think they all closed in 2014. The franchises, you know, kind of had this option to keep paying the license fee and stay open, stay a Blockbuster. And so there were a lot. I think there were like 50 that stayed open when Blockbuster went out of business. And over the years, just the business model kind of went down and down and down until there were just fewer and fewer left. But Dish Network owns the name, so they still work with them. You know, it's not a big deal to Dish because it's just the one store now. But it's the same license, you know, that if you see a Blockbuster T-shirt at Hot Topic or Walmart or something,
okay, so
they're licensing the name too.
Gotcha. Interesting.
Yeah.
You got some cool people in it. Obviously, it's one of my personal favorites is Kevin Smith. I mean, if you have him attached and him on board, I feel like the whole pop culture masses kind of tunes in. So, what was it like working with him? Looks like you shot at Scum and Village, or what was it, Scum and Villain in
Scum and Villainy in LA, yeah. Yeah, that was, you know, kind of a dream come true for me as a indie film fan and then later indie film maker.
Yeah.
There was definitely a time, I think, before they re-released Star Wars in the theaters and everything, and I got back into the Star Wars hype, where if you had asked me what my favorite movie was for years, I would have said Clerks, and then I would have said Mallrats after that.
The Mallrats are my favorite.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
And then you know, Chasing Amy less so, and Jay and Silent Bob, and all these movies. But I've remained a pretty diehard View Askew fan over all the years, and knowing that Kevin Smith worked in a video store and like RST Video was the real store that he had worked at, and all that, it made logical sense to me for us to reach out and say, you worked at a video store, you know what it's like. Also, you clearly love movies. He spends all day on podcasts and on now IMDb talking about movies with people. So it was difficult to schedule to get that to work out, but he was great. You know, he was definitely on board and interested in talking about Blockbuster Video.
Yeah, it is really cool. I think about it because Clerks, you know, have the video store too. So, yeah, I'm the same with you, man. I'm a huge music fan, Star Wars fan, and Kevin Smith fan. Like, I grew up in Maryland, and there used to be a festival in Asbury Park called Skate and Surf Festival, and
Nice.
right near Red Bank. So I used to go to the original Jay and Silent Bob secret stash and spend $200 every time I go, just for all the view movies that came with signed DVDs and stuff. So. Yeah. So you had your world premiere for this at a drive-in movie theater recently, right?
Yeah, we had scheduled back in January. I think we had worked out to do a world premiere here in Bend, home of the last Blockbuster, at this beautiful historic theater. It's huge, and it's the perfect fit, right? It's in the town. It's this great theater, and we were gonna have guests come in, like I think Doug Benson was coming, and some other folks from the movie, and we had it all worked out. And then in March, you know, things started to slowly close down, and nothing could happen, and so we postponed it. It was supposed to be in May. We pushed it to July, and then we pushed it again to August. And what we ended up doing is we couldn't figure out how to make it safe for people. And, you know, I know it's whatever the low percentage of anything really happening and people can wear masks and all that, but I couldn't live with it if anybody got sick.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like, there's no justification. This is a feel-good popcorn movie about movies, about loving movies. And if anyone came and got sick, I never would have forgiven myself. So we canceled it. We were just like, all right, we'll figure out a digital release, you know, later in the year. We're talking to distributors and whatnot. And then the local film festival folks reached out and said, hey, we're doing a pop-up drive-in movie theater. Can we show one? I think they asked about one of my short films that I had done during COVID. And I was like, I'll do you one better. Why don't we do the world premiere of the last Blockbuster that, you know, this whole town has been clamoring for years, because they've obviously heard about it. And as soon as we could work out the details, we were just like, yes, this is, of course, it's got to be a drive-in movie for this movie about renting movies in this town that loves movies. It all worked out kind of perfectly for me. And, you know, this is my third documentary, and they all sold out world premieres, super fun, Q&A, great times, special guests, whatever. But this one's going to be the most memorable because it was just crazy to do a drive-in movie in 2020. And then, you know, it's because of these times, but it's one of those kind of silver lining things of like making lemonade out of lemons, I guess, because
That's a good way to put it.
I got to see a movie I worked on for 3 years up at a drive-in movie theater, you know, sitting in my car. And then we did the Q&A still, but it was broadcast to everyone's radios, and they had to text their questions in.
Oh,
that's how we did the Q&A. But it was really fun. And Sandy, who's the star of the movie, the manager of the Blockbuster, and her whole family was there, and all these, you know, the whole town basically came out to support the movie, and also just to go to something. You know, it was probably the first big event that people could go to for months.
So lastly, I just interviewed J.R. Richards from Dishwalla, and and he left a comment on my Facebook that I guess you well, no, you were in a ska band before you were a filmmaker, or several bands, I assume, right? Or, and you opened for Dishwalla in the 90s or late 2000s or something? Or?
It was very early in the 2000s.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was in a mediocre pop punk band, and we opened. We used to get these good gigs because I worked with the promoter. I would be like the kid hanging up the flyers and like being paid almost nothing. But the perk was I got first dibs to be like, oh, some band is coming through. And we got to open for Yellow Card and Fishbone and I think Unwritten Law. And it was great. And then one of them, actually the first like opportunity for us was opening for Dishwalla. And they had had a hit maybe 5 years before, but
Yeah.
this was very early in the 2000s. They were still touring. I assume they had a new record out or something. But we were like one of those bands that we weren't very good, so we would do, like, we had somebody dress up in a cardboard robot outfit and just like give away stickers and like all the, shenanigans, right? Like songs that weren't songs, but we'd all run around in circles and do nonsense things. We were like a high school pop punk band.
Yeah.
And they were not having it. They were just like, we are a professional band, and we use backing tracks and have in-ear monitors, and we are legitimate, and we've had radio hits, and we're Dishwalla. And we're, I'm like 19 years old or something. Like, all right, cool. You guys are.
So they actually came up to you and said this afterwards, like, or like their members released, or
I don't remember.
Or they just kind of gave you that stare where you knew what they were thinking.
Yeah, we definitely knew what they were thinking at the time, but I think because I worked with the promoter, it got back to me later that they were like not happy that we had been added to the bill. But we were a local band, and we probably sold as many tickets as they did at that time. Right, we were the draw, or at least half and half.
Yeah.
And then later, when I was working on my first movie in 2016, it was about a band called the Refreshments, who were a one-hit wonder band around the same time as Dishwalla, and they had toured together. Like, their one big tour for their one big record was with Dishwalla. So I ended up interviewing two of the guys from Dishwalla for that movie and telling them that story, and they were like, "We don't remember. You're not." Which is perfect. It's full circle, right? So.
Oh, I love that. It's such a great story. So what's the latest for Last Blockbuster documentary? Where can people get in touch, watch it, hopefully eventually? Or
yeah, so we're still figuring out our release schedule, and we should have, fingers crossed, we're gonna have something to announce really soon.
Gotcha.
As far as how and when and where you'll be able to watch the movie. The trailer's up at lastblockbustermovie.com. And you can sign up for the email list there and find out as soon as we know anything. We're also on Facebook and Instagram at Last Blockbuster Movie.
Well, Taylor, thank you so much for taking time to talk to me, and we'll talk down the road, all right, man?
Yeah, sounds good, man.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Please support this video by giving it a thumbs up, leave a comment below, and hit that subscribe button while you're down there. Thank you so much.